The Vikings are warriors from Scandinavia. They formed part of the Norse culture, which was both warrior, raider, and trader. In the history of the Vikings, there are poems and writings that show that they were great storytellers and poets. However, they are so known for being violent and predatory that it is hard to believe that they were also good artists, storytellers, and traders. The Vikings' way of life was very rural, with almost no cities among their societies. Due to the cold climate of that region, which is covered with ice and snow most of the year, it was very difficult to develop agriculture and animal husbandry. This forced many people in the region to look for other ways to survive. In the 7th and 8th centuries, they realized that boats were powered by sails instead of oars. They were able to turn small boats into large ships. They designed ships that could move easily and quickly in any depth of water and easily go ashore. The long ships were usually decorated with dragon heads carved into the bows, which were believed to ward off evil spirits. Their ships were known as Drakar, the dragon ships. The dragon's head, along with the large square sail with red stripes, is known as the signature of the Vikings. This sight created fear in the hearts of Europeans for 3 centuries. Exactly when how many Vikings decided to unite and appoint a chieftain to raid other places is unclear. Maybe they were at war with themselves, and whoever had more power and family would become the boss. Perhaps those who had seen the other regions came and told of the wealth of the other regions, and the Vikings, who barely lived by farming and fishing, decided to attack the other regions. A Viking raid on the monks of Lindisfarne, a small island off the northeast coast of England, marked the beginning of the Viking migration from Scandinavia in 793. Monks and its vast library. During the attack, the monks were killed, thrown into the sea, or taken as slaves along with many of the church treasures, and the library itself was destroyed. This single event set the stage for how Vikings were perceived throughout the Viking Age. Savage warriors with no respect for religion or appreciation for learning. Vikings first attacked different areas with only a few boats. After looting some provisions and being resisted, they would return home. But in the 850s, larger raids began into southern England, Ireland, and along the Seine in France, establishing bases from which to begin to dominate the hinterland. In battle, the Vikings used heavy chainmail. Their shields were round. In addition to being used for defensive purposes, they also served to attack and destabilize the opponent. Most Vikings used an axe to fight because swords were so expensive and sought after. Many of those swords were works of art. Some became legends, like the famous Olbert sword. Among the many gods Vikings believed in were Thor, the god of thunder, and Loki, a cheeky mischief maker who could shapeshift to become all different kinds of animals. The Vikings believed that brave warriors who were killed on the battlefield with their weapons had the right to enter Valhalla. There they occupied a place in the hall of the great god Odin. The Vikings ruled the Wessex region of England for many years until their last king, Eric Bedeaux, was expelled and killed in 954. These attacks reached a crescendo in the second half of the 9th century. The Vikings built long and fortified ports in Ireland, such as Dublin Port, from where they dominated the eastern part of the island. In France in 885, a Viking army besieged and nearly captured Paris after their king was politically defeated. In Scotland, they dominated Shetland and the Hebrides and entered England in 865. They defeated Northumbria, and in 866 their southern capital, York, fell. In the same way, they took over other parts of England. The Vikings controlled large parts of Scotland, especially Orkney, the area around Dublin and Normandy in France, and a large part of Russia for many years. But this was not the extent of the lands conquered by the Vikings. These adventurous sailors, whose strength in shipbuilding made them dare to travel to other lands, went to the west of the Atlantic Ocean, find lands and thus more booty. About 500 years before Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, Vikings had visited its shores and landed in what is now Canada around 1000 AD. One of the most famous Vikings, Ivar the Boneless, son of Ragnar Lodbrok, a famous warrior and one of the leaders of the Great Heathen Army, invaded England in 865. The reason why he is called boneless is unknown, but some speculate that perhaps there was a defect in his leg or bone structure that made him known as Ivar the Boneless. However, he was known for his shrewdness and strategic vision. Ivar the Boneless was so ferocious and hard-hearted that when he killed others in battle, he seemed to go into a trance and fight the most ferocious of all. In fact, there was no dramatic end to the Viking Age. The Scandinavian kingdoms were slowly acculturated and integrated into the wider polity of European Christendom.